The bottom level of our pyramid is one, as I told you, you're already familiar with. Okay? This is the trial level of the court system. So who are some of the people, some of the actors that you expect to see in the trial level? So give me somebody that you would expect to see in a trial level court. Okay, I'll come back to you. Okay. Just tell me the title of somebody that you expect to see in a trial.
Oh, prosecutor.
Okay. And the prosecutor by profession is not a criminal, although some criminals say that they are. Professionally, when they graduated and they looked at the piece of paper that the university gave them, what is it that they do? They're attorneys. They're attorneys. And a prosecutor is a type of attorney. There's a function that the prosecutor has. Prosecutors are attorneys that are associated with criminal cases. But we're going to talk about generally the court system. So we're going to define them as attorneys. Okay? So you're going to have attorneys. And over here, I'm going to put back the pyramid in just a second. But over here, we're going to draw a standard courtroom. Okay? At the head of a standard courtroom, sitting on high, you have a person dressed in a black robe. What do we call that person? The judge. The judge. Okay. And here in two tables, across from an aisle, you have the attorneys, right? The attorneys. And sitting next to the attorneys, who do you have? Who's sitting there? The defendant. And then on the other side you have the plaintiff. And these are generally called the parties. The parties. So you have attorneys, and by the way, there's no specific place where you sit. As a matter of fact, in civil court, the way you figure out which table you sit in is who gets to the courthouse first and sets their stuff on top of the table. Once you've claimed your ground, that's where you sit. So there's no rule as to which side. In criminal law or in criminal cases, there is more specificity, but in civil side there isn't. So you have the attorneys and the parties. Okay. Who else do you have? You have witnesses, and they sit very close to the person in the, I was going to say altar, but we call it a bench. Okay? This is called the bench. Okay? The bench. And the witness is there. Do you know what they call where the witness sits? It's the witness stand. Okay? The witness stand. And then you have other busybody people in the courtroom, right? Mm-hmm. Okay? You have a person with a badge. Okay? Do you know what they call that person? Hmm? That ultimately, if you're found guilty, they book you, but it's a courtroom deputy. A courtroom deputy. And their job is to enforce whatever the judge says in the courtroom. So they're kind of the private police force of the judge. And then you have some person that's sitting probably right here at the table, and they're writing stuff. You know what they call that person? It's a courtroom clerk. A clerk. Their function, just so you know, is to make sure that all of the documentation, all of the records, all of the exhibits are properly kept and properly written down. Okay, so that's their function, to make sure that all the documentation, all the records are done. Okay? Then you have another person here with a funky little machine. It looks like a typewriter, but it's not. What do you call that person? They're taking things down in a little machine. What do you call them? The what? A court reporter. Okay? A court reporter. Their function is to write down in that funky little machine every single word that is said by anybody in the courtroom. And they work from 9 to about 5. Sometimes they extend. So these are if they're athletes in the court system, these are the athletes. Because they have to listen and hear every single word. Now, we attorneys sometimes cheat. And part of the reason is court reporter. We cheat because sometimes I begin to ask a question, and then in the middle of the question I've forgotten what I was asking. So, the other attorney, because now I'm mumbling, the other attorney will say, object. And look at what are their objections. Well, unintelligible or whatever their objection is. And I've forgotten what the question was. So I'll turn to the court reporter and say, could you read it back? And they take out this script and they read back word for word everything that I have said. And sometimes people talk over each other. So it's very difficult for them to do what they do, but they do it very well. Okay? So then here you have a very small fence and a door that generally swings, right? You know what they call this fence? You really don't need to know, but since I know, I'm going to tell you. They call it the bar. That's why when you pass the bar, you now have the ability to work in the stage. Okay? That's what passing the bar means. Okay? And all attorneys must pass the bar from mere spectator, everybody sits here, to a functionary within the court system. And that's what passing the bar is about. This is a trial. And in a trial, the objective of a trial is the truth. The objective of the trial is the truth. Okay? As a matter of fact, in Dade County, way behind the judge, there is one sentence. Okay? And I've not been to many other states, so I can't tell you whether they have the same thing in theirs. But it says, "Ye who labor here, seek the truth." Okay? Ye who labor here, seek the truth. Now, having said that, it's not the same truth that you and I think of as the truth in life. Okay? The truth in a trial is whatever you can prove to a jury. Let me say that again. The truth in a trial is whatever you can prove to a jury. Now, we all, in recent memory, can think of a trial that didn't go the way we expected, right? That the result was contrary to what we thought was going to happen, right? O.J. Simpson case was one such as that, right? Everybody thought, guy did it. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a mini-series that's going to be based on the trial. But what's the truth of that case? Did he do it or didn't he do it? He didn't do it. The jury found him not innocent. They acquitted him. Acquittal is not the same thing as innocent. Okay? They acquitted, which means that he is not going to be held responsible for that crime, because the truth is that the jury found that he did not, there was insufficient evidence to determine that he committed that crime. Okay? If we fast forward, in the last few years, I had the pleasure of teaching a criminal procedure class during the Trayvon Martin case. Remember the Trayvon Martin case? Okay. Everybody was listening and looking and observing and had an opinion on the Trayvon Martin case. What is the truth of that case? Not saying whether he was guilty or innocent. What is the truth of that case? Was he guilty, George Zimmerman, or not?
He was.
Not what you feel. What was the truth of that case? Ye who labor here seek the truth. The truth in a courtroom is whatever you can prove to a jury. So the truth in that case is that he's not guilty. The truth in the O.J. Simpson case is that he's not guilty. So what you have to understand is that in a courtroom, we have to suspend our personal emotions and our personal beliefs as what we believe is true or not. And we have to go into and put on a hat of contest. The contest is the truth that wins out to a panel of people that sit over here. They're called the jury. And that's the truth that these people labor under. Okay. So, there are witnesses, there are lawyers, there are parties, there's a judge, there's a jury. Who here has not seen a television show, has not seen a movie where you have seen some depiction of this drama? Everybody's seen some depiction of this drama, right? Okay? This attorney says something and this one stands up and says, I object! And the judge either says sustain and there's some sort of argument that goes, that's the drama that takes place in a courtroom. That's what the trial level courts do. Okay? That's what the trial level courts do. Why do you think that I put it at the base of my pyramid?
Because it's bigger.
It's not physically bigger, but there is some bigness in it. And that is that there's a lot of trials that take place. Criminal trials, civil trials, there's a lot of trials that take place. Okay? So you need to have a lot of trial courts. Okay? In Dade County, if you've had a traffic ticket, sometimes you've gone by Jackson Memorial Hospital to traffic court there. Sometimes you've gone to 200 and South Dixie Highway because there's a court there. There is one in Biscayne Bay on 150 something. There's one in Hialeah. There's one in Ponce de Leon. There's lots of trial courts because there's a lot of cases. So you need to have a lot of them. But then we get to the appellate level courts. Okay? Appellate level courts. Now, these are different. Unless you've seen a very weird movie or have been observing some sort of trial procedure. Very few people understand what goes on. First of all, let me try to explain it this way. Irrespective of where we work or if we work, generally people have supervisors, right? You work, you have a supervisor. The function of the supervisor is to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do, when, where, and how you're supposed to do it. Okay? So that the system can continue to flow in a correct way. That's what appellate courts do. They supervise and they make sure that the system works the way it's supposed to work. So let's say you have a trial. And by the way, in civil cases, which is primarily where business is going to be related, in order to go to court, you've got to pay an attorney, right? Because they don't come for free. In criminal court, if you cannot afford an attorney, you've heard it, right? Somebody's getting arrested and they say, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford an attorney, one shall be appointed. In civil court, guess what? You do not have a right to an attorney. So if in civil case, somebody's done you wrong, somebody's breached your contract, somebody stayed over the amount of time that they're supposed to in their lease, and you want to kick them out, you want to get even, somebody put a bug in your fries, and you wanna sue that McDonald's, you need to get an attorney.